Wife's late meetings exposed by accidental text. My cold, brutal revenge, and how I rebuilt my life after her affair blasted my world apart. Hey Reddit, I'm new to posting here, but I've been lurking for a while on relationship subreddits, never thinking I'd be in a position to actually need advice this badly. My hands are shaking as I type this, and honestly, I just need to get it all out, even if it's just to a bunch of strangers on the internet. My world just shattered, and I feel like I'm drowning. My wife, Sarah, and I have been together for 10 years, married for 7. We met in college, fell head over heels, built a life. Or so I thought. We had a nice house, 2 dogs, talked about kids constantly. She was vibrant, high energy, a bit demanding sometimes, but I always saw it as passion, you know? Like she just knew what she wanted and wasn't afraid to go for it. We had our ups and downs, like any couple, sure, but nothing ever felt insurmountable. We'd always found our way back to each other, always communicated. I genuinely believed we had something special, something unbreakable. We were us. Over the past 6 months, though, things started to shift. Slowly, almost imperceptibly at first. She started working later more often. Fine, I get it. Her job in marketing can be demanding, always chasing new clients, new campaigns. But then she'd come home smelling faintly of a perfume I didn't recognize. Not her usual floral scent, but something muskier, heavier. And her phone became an extension of her hand, always face down, always muted. If I walked into the room, she'd snap it shut or change screens faster than a ninja in a spy movie. I try to joke about it. What secrets are you hiding there, Agent 007? And she'd just give me this tight, forced smile and say, just work stuff, you wouldn't understand. God, you're so nosy sometimes. That's when the little prickle of unease started, a tiny thorn under the skin of my trust. I tried to brush it off. Don't be paranoid, I told myself. She's just busy, stressed. I trust her. I trusted her. She's always been very independent, a real go-getter, and I respected that. We had our own lives outside of each other, and I valued that freedom for both of us. But the little things piled up. She started going out with friends I'd never heard of, or suddenly needed to run errands that took hours, coming home with no shopping bags, just an excuse about the store being closed or not having what she needed. She'd get defensive if I asked too many questions, snapping, "Are you interrogating me? Don't you trust me?" And I'd back down, feeling guilty for even asking, like I was the one in the wrong for simply being curious about my own wife's increasingly opaque schedule. Her responses always had this edge, like I was inconveniencing her with my mere presence. Then came last Tuesday. She told me she had a late meeting, a big client pitch that ran over, wouldn't be home until after 9 p.m. I was fine with it, planned a quiet evening with the dogs and a movie. Around 7 p.m., my phone buzzed. It wasn't a call, it was a picture message from her number. My heart did a weird lurch, a mix of confusion and mild alarm. It was a selfie of her, but not a selfie for me. She was in a fancy restaurant, laughing, her hair done up, wearing a stunning black dress I'd never seen her in. And in the background, out of focus but undeniably there, was a man's arm around her shoulder, his hand just visible on her upper arm. His watch glinted, a heavy silver one. It wasn't my watch. And the text under the picture? Such a great night, babe. Can't wait for round 2. Only, it wasn't sent to me. It was clearly meant for someone else, and somehow, by some cosmic joke, it landed in my inbox instead of his. My breath caught in my throat. I stared at it, rereading the message, zooming in on the arm, the watch, her utterly joyful, unguarded smile. A smile she hadn't given me in months, maybe even a year. The world went silent. Then everything just crashed. My vision swam. The dog started barking, wanting to play, but I couldn't move. I just kept staring at that picture, the undeniable evidence, the gut-wrenching proof of her betrayal. The air felt like ice, even though it was a warm evening. I must have reread that message 100 times, hoping against hope that I was misinterpreting it, that it was some kind of elaborate prank, a wrong number fluke. But it was her number, her face, her joyful expression. And that text, such a great night, babe. Can't wait for round 2. It was a punch to the gut, a betrayal so stark and sudden it left me winded. My mind raced, trying to find any other explanation, any escape hatch from this awful reality. Maybe it was an old photo? No, the dress, the restaurant. I'd never seen her in that dress. A client dinner? But who sends a client that kind of message, with that level of intimacy, especially from her personal phone, and to send it to me by accident? The sheer carelessness, the audacity, it made my blood boil even as my heart felt like it was crumbling. I put my phone down, face up, on the coffee table. I couldn't look at it, but I couldn't look away either. It was a digital brand, searing the truth into my brain. The dogs, sensing my distress, started whining and nudging my hand. But I was utterly unresponsive, a statue made of ice and rage. Every single late night, every errand, every muted phone call, every defensive snapback, it all clicked into place with horrifying clarity. I wasn't paranoid. I was just blind. She hadn't been busy with work. She'd been busy with him. The wait for her to come home was pure torture. Every minute dragged like an hour. I paced, I sat, I stared at the walls. My mind was a whirlwind of questions and accusations. Who was he? How long had this been going on? Had our entire marriage been a lie for months? Years? The worst part was the thought of her smiling, laughing, telling me she loved me, all while carrying on with someone else. The sheer hypocrisy of it. I felt sick to my stomach. I wanted to smash something, scream, anything to release the pressure building inside me. But I needed to be calm, or at least appear calm. I needed answers, and I knew she wouldn't give them up easily. Her talent for deflection and blaming me was well honed. Around 9:30 p.m., I heard her car pull into the driveway. My muscles tensed, a cold wave washing over me. This was it, the moment of truth. I took a deep breath, trying to steady my shaking hands. The front door opened, and she walked in, looking tired but not distraught. She dropped her keys in the bowl, kicked off her shoes. "Hey, babe," she said, her voice a little weary. "Long day." That client pitch went on forever. "Just closed the deal though, thank God." She gave me a weak, practiced smile, heading straight for the fridge. I just watched her, the lie hanging in the air between us, thick and suffocating. Her casual deception, the way she could just utter it so smoothly, knowing I was waiting here, believing her. It was repulsive. I felt a surge of pure disgust. My hands balled into fists, then relaxed, then balled again. I knew if I launched into it immediately, she'd just deny. I needed to play it cool. For now, I needed to see how far she would take it. I needed to watch her eyes, her movements, looking for any flicker of guilt, any crack in her carefully constructed facade. "Oh, really?" I managed, my voice sounding unnaturally flat even to my own ears. "A big win then. Good for you." She poured herself a glass of water. "Yeah, I'm exhausted though. Just want to shower and crash." "Did you eat?" "Yeah, I ate," I replied, my gaze fixed on her. She seemed oblivious, totally unaware that her entire carefully curated world was about to come crashing down. That picture, that message, was still burning a hole in my pocket, or rather, my phone. The digital evidence, pristine and damning, was waiting. I just needed to pick the right moment to deliver the fatal blow. It felt less like a confrontation and more like preparing for war. And I wasn't sure I was ready for the collateral damage. The next morning felt like walking through a thick, oppressive fog. I hadn't slept a wink. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw her laughing face, the man's arm. Sarah, on the other hand, woke up cheerful, humming to herself as she got ready for work. It was sickening. She came downstairs, bright-eyed, asking if I wanted coffee, completely oblivious to the hurricane brewing inside me. Her normal, everyday cheerfulness was like a physical assault. How could she be so normal? So unburdened? I just watched her, trying to force myself to act normal too. I managed a strained, "Yeah, thanks," when she offered coffee. I needed to see her face when the truth hit, needed to see the mask fall. I needed to confront her properly, not just ambush her in the kitchen before she'd even had her morning caffeine. This wasn't just a betrayal. It was a performance, and she deserved an audience for the finale. She sat down opposite me at the breakfast bar, scrolling through her phone. Probably texting him, I thought, a fresh wave of nausea washing over me. "Any plans for tonight?" she asked, not looking up. "I might be home a bit late again, another client dinner. This new deal is really taking up all my time." My blood ran cold. Another client dinner. Another lie. Right to my face. This was it. The moment had arrived. My hands, which had been clenched under the table, began to tremble. I reached for my phone, unlocked it, and pulled up that picture. The one she'd accidentally sent me. The one that blew up my entire existence. Actually, Sarah, I began, my voice surprisingly steady, despite the earthquake rattling my insides. I think we need to talk about your client dinners. She finally looked up, a flicker of irritation crossing her face. What about them? Is there a problem? You know my job is demanding. I slid my phone across the table, turning it so the picture was clearly visible to her. Her eyes widened, focusing on the screen. The humming stopped. The cheerful facade crumbled. Her face went from casual annoyance to utter horror in a fraction of a second. Her pupils dilated, her jaw went slack. It was like watching a cartoon character suddenly realize they're standing on air. Silence. Heavy, suffocating silence. She picked up the phone, her fingers fumbling, then dropped it back onto the table as if it had burned her. She looked at me, a desperate, cornered animal look in her eyes. What? What is this? She stammered, her voice barely a whisper. Where did you get this? It's from your phone, Sarah, I said, each word feeling like a stone rolling off my tongue. Sent to my phone, last night, by accident. A very unfortunate accident for you, wouldn't you say? Such a great night, babe. Can't wait for round 2. I recited the text, my voice dripping with ice. Who's babe, Sarah? And who's that guy whose arm is all over my wife? Her face was ashen. She tried to recover, to spin. It's nothing. It's an old picture. A joke. My phone must have glitched. An old picture? I scoffed, a bitter laugh escaping my lips. In a dress I've never seen you wear? In a restaurant you've never mentioned? From last night, when you were supposedly closing a big deal. Don't insult my intelligence, Sarah. Don't lie to me again. Tell me the truth. Now. Her eyes darted around the room, frantically searching for an escape, a loophole. She bit her lip, then burst into tears, sudden and loud. It's just a mistake. I swear. He's just a colleague. We were celebrating the deal, and he got a bit too friendly, and I was uncomfortable, but I didn't want to make a scene. And the message? I don't know how it got sent to you. I deleted it. Someone else must have done it. The sheer volume of lies, the frantic, desperate denial, the immediate shift to playing the victim. It was breathtaking. I felt a cold, hard knot form in my chest. Sarah, I said, my voice low and dangerous. Are you seriously telling me that's not your message, not your friend, not your babe? You expect me to believe your phone magically sent me a picture you took, with a caption you wrote, to him, and it just landed in my inbox instead? And that guy, a colleague who's got his arm around you like that, you were uncomfortable, but let him take a selfie and send a message about round 2? She dissolved into louder sobs, covering her face with her hands. I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry. It's not what you think. I love you. Please, don't believe this. Her words were meaningless, hollow. They just bounced off the wall of ice I was building around my heart. I knew, with absolute certainty, that she was lying through her teeth. And that was almost as devastating as the affair itself. The disrespect, the contempt for my intelligence, the total lack of remorse, only fear of getting caught. Her crocodile tears and frantic excuses were like gasoline on the fire inside me. Don't believe this? I repeated, my voice now a low growl. I'm looking at it, Sarah. I'm looking at you. And I'm listening to you lie, again. You've been lying to me for months, haven't you? Every late meeting, every errand, every time you snapped at me for asking a simple question. She continued to sob, head buried in her hands, her body shaking. No, it's not like that. It was just a moment of weakness. He pursued me. He was so persistent, and I was just feeling neglected, and it meant nothing, absolutely nothing to me. I swear on everything. It was just physical, a mistake. I love you. Neglected? I barked, standing up abruptly, the chair scraping loudly against the floor. Neglected? I cooked your favorite meals. I listened to you vent about your impossible boss. I spent every weekend with you. When were you neglected, Sarah? When I was here, waiting for you to come home from your real client dinners. The anger was boiling over, making my head pound. And a moment of weakness that leads to can't wait for round 2? That sounds like a whole series of moments, a whole damn season of weakness. How many rounds, Sarah? How many times have you been out with him, laughing, touching, while I sat here like a fool? She looked up, her face tear-streaked, but there was a flash of something in her eyes, something defiant, almost resentful. despite her feigned remorse. It was fleeting, but I saw it. The bitchy side of her, the one that usually only came out when she felt truly cornered, not genuinely sorry. It wasn't that many times, she blurted out, clearly trying to minimize. A few. Just a few. And it's over now, I promise. I'll never see him again. Please, please, just believe me. Give me another chance. I messed up, I know, but I can fix it. We can fix us. Fix us. I laughed, a hollow, bitter sound. You think you can fix this? You didn't just mess up, Sarah. You systematically lied to me. You deceived me. You broke every single vow we made. You paraded around with some other guy, sending him intimate messages, while you came home and pretended everything was fine with me. Do you have any idea how much that hurts? Do you even care? The mask of contrition started to slip further. Of course I care. I needed something. You've been so focused on your own stuff lately, your hobbies, your friends. I felt like you weren't paying attention to me. You just made me feel wanted. Oh, I've been focused on my stuff? I exploded, the controlled anger giving way to sheer fury. My stuff was going to the gym, reading, taking the dogs for walks while you were out with your boyfriend. You were the one who always had an excuse for why we couldn't spend time together, why you were too tired, why you had to work late. You twisted it all around, made me feel like the distant one, the one with problems, so you could justify your dirty little secret. The accusatory tone made her lash out. Well, maybe if you paid more attention, I wouldn't have needed to look elsewhere, she snapped, her voice rising, losing all pretense of apology. Maybe if you were more exciting, more spontaneous, more like him. That's when it hit me. The pure, unadulterated venom. The blame shifting. The audacity. She wasn't sorry for what she did. She was sorry she got caught. And somehow, it was still my fault. All the love, all the trust, all the years we'd built together, they evaporated in that instant, replaced by a searing contempt. I looked at her, truly looked at her, and saw a stranger. A selfish, manipulative stranger who had taken my heart and stomped all over it. Don't you dare, I said, my voice dangerously low, cutting through her sudden outburst. Don't you ever dare try to put this on me. This is all you, Sarah. Every single bit of it. My mind, previously a whirlwind of pain and confusion, suddenly sharpened with a cold, clear resolve. This wasn't just about discovery anymore. This was about retribution. This was about making her understand the gravity of her actions, not just for my sake, but for the sheer injustice of it all. The emotional impact was no longer just sadness. It was a profound sense of violation, a desire for something to be set right. And I knew, right then, that fixing us was not an option. Not anymore. I needed to pick up the broken pieces of my life, but I was damn sure she wasn't going to get off scot-free. This was going to be brutal. The shift was immediate and terrifying, even for me. One moment, I was a heartbroken husband. The next, I was a man fueled by a cold, calculating rage. Her last outburst, the blaming, the comparison to him, that was the final straw. It extinguished the last flicker of love or hope I had for her, replacing it with a grim determination. I stared at her, still sobbing, but now with a fresh layer of defiance creeping into her posture. Get out, I said, my voice barely a whisper, yet it cut through her wailing. She stopped abruptly, looking at me, confused. What? I said, get out. I repeated, louder this time, pointing towards the front door. Get your things, get in your car, and get out of my house. Now. Your house? She screeched, suddenly finding her full voice. This is our house. We own it together. You can't just kick me out. Oh, I can, and I will, I said, a chilling calm settling over me. You just proved to me that you have absolutely no respect for this marriage, for me, or for anything we built. You want to talk about him making you feel wanted? Go be wanted by him. But not here. Not in our bed. Not under our roof. I walked towards the hallway closet, pulled out her spare suitcase, and threw it at her feet. Start packing. Her face contorted, a mixture of shock, anger, and a dawning realization of the severity of the situation. You're serious? You're actually doing this? Over a stupid mistake? A stupid mistake that lasted months and involved you lying to my face every single day. I corrected her, my voice devoid of emotion. Yes, Sarah, I am serious. I'm not going to be the cuckold husband who works it out with his cheating wife. Not after you just told me it was my fault. You want to live a life of deceit? Fine, but you're not going to do it with me, and you're not going to do it here. She tried to argue, to plead, but I wasn't listening. My mind was already moving, strategizing. I pulled out my phone, not to look at the picture this time, but to call a divorce lawyer. "I'm calling Mark," I stated, loud enough for her to hear. Mark was a friend from college, a sharp attorney, specializing in family law. He's going to draw up the papers. You have until I get off this phone to start packing, or I'm calling the police and having you escorted out for trespassing. You're not safe in this house with me anymore, Sarah. Not after what you've done. That seemed to snap something in her. The threat of legal action, of public humiliation, finally got through her thick skull. She started scrambling, grabbing clothes, shoving them haphazardly into the suitcase. She was still muttering, complaining, trying to paint me as the unreasonable one, the cruel one. "You're overreacting. This is insane. You'll regret this." I ignored her, walking into the living room, putting Mark on speaker. "Hey Mark, it's my name." "Yeah, I'm good, mate. You? Listen, I need your help. My wife's cheating on me. I have irrefutable proof, and I want to file for divorce. I want her out of the house today. What's the fastest way to get an emergency restraining order or something similar? She's being difficult." Sarah froze mid-pack, her eyes wide as she heard my conversation with Mark. The color drained from her face again. She finally understood. This wasn't a tantrum, it was a decision. A final, irreversible decision. She slammed the suitcase shut, her hands still shaking, and dragged it to the door. "You'll pay for this," she hissed, her voice cracking with fury, not sadness. "You'll regret everything." "No, Sarah," I replied, my gaze cold and steady as she struggled to open the door with her bulky bag. "You'll regret everything. I'm just making sure you have to live with the consequences of your choices for once." She stormed out, slamming the door behind her with a pathetic whimper. The house suddenly felt eerily silent, the air still thick with the residue of her lies and my anger. I leaned against the wall, taking deep, shuddering breaths. The adrenaline was slowly draining, leaving behind a profound emptiness. But beneath the emptiness, there was a strange sense of clarity, a brutal freedom. The decision was made. The confrontation was over. Now came the hard part, rebuilding. But it wouldn't be with her. Never again. The silence after Sarah left was deafening. It wasn't a peaceful silence. It was heavy, suffocating, filled with the echoes of shattered trust and bitter accusations. The dogs, who had been hiding under the couch during the shouting match, tentatively emerged, looking up at me with worried eyes. Their innocent faces were a painful reminder of the life we'd built, now irrevocably broken. I sank onto the sofa, the one we'd picked out together, the one where we'd spent countless evenings, cuddled up, planning our future. Now, it just felt cold and alien. The immediate adrenaline rush was wearing off, replaced by a deep, aching emptiness in my chest. It felt like someone had scooped out my insides. The anger was still there, a burning ember, but it was now overshadowed by a profound sadness. 7 years of marriage, 10 years of a relationship, just gone. Vaporized in a single text message and a torrent of lies. The emotional impact was a chaotic mess. The initial shock had given way to disbelief, then a white-hot rage, and now a crushing despair. I felt a visceral sense of violation, like my most sacred space had been defiled. The memories, once cherished, were now tainted, poisoned. Every laugh, every touch, every whispered, "I love you." Had it all been a lie? Was I just a fool, living in a fantasy while she was leading a double life? My lawyer, Mark, was incredibly supportive. He walked me through the first steps, explaining the legal implications, the need to secure certain assets, and how to begin the divorce proceedings. He advised me to change the locks, secure important documents, and limit contact with her. He told me he'd send over the initial papers, and we'd meet next week. His calm, professional demeanor was a lifeline in the storm, grounding me even as I felt like I was spinning out of control. After the call, I just sat there, numb. I picked up one of the dog's chew toys, a tattered rope she loved, and just held it. Tears, hot and uncontrollable, started to stream down my face. I hadn't cried in years, not really. But now, they came in waves, a torrent of grief for the loss of my marriage, for the future I thought I had, for the person I thought my wife was. It wasn't just the betrayal. It was the obliteration of my entire understanding of our shared history. How could I have been so wrong about someone I loved so deeply? I tried to eat, but my stomach clenched at the thought of food. My head throbbed. I felt physically ill. The thought of her, with him, doing the things we used to do, saying the things we used to say, was a constant, excruciating loop in my mind. It was a torture I wouldn't wish on my worst enemy. I wanted to scream, to smash things, to just disappear. But amidst the pain, a small, stubborn spark of resolve remained. This wasn't the end of me. It was the end of us. And while us was a significant part of my life, it wasn't my entire life. I had to get through this. For myself, for my future, and yes, even for the dogs who were now my only consistent source of comfort. The betrayal was brutal, the pain immense, but I knew, deep down, that I deserved better than a lying, cheating spouse. I deserved honesty, respect, and genuine love. And I was going to fight for it, even if it meant tearing my world apart and painstakingly rebuilding it from scratch. It was a long road ahead, but for the first time in what felt like an eternity, I could see a faint, flickering light at the very end of it. The next few days were a blur of practicalities and raw emotion. Mark, my lawyer, was incredibly efficient. He sent over an emergency separation agreement, which included temporary restraining orders from shared finances and property, effectively preventing Sarah from cleaning out our joint accounts or showing up at the house unannounced. I changed the locks on every door, a symbolic act that felt both necessary and heartbreaking. Each click of the new tumblers felt like another nail in the coffin of my marriage. I also started packing her remaining things into boxes, clothes, personal trinkets, framed photos of us. It was agonizing. Every item brought a fresh wave of memories, each one now tainted by the knowledge of her deceit. I found a small, hidden box in her dresser, filled with old love letters from me. I almost threw them in the trash, but something stopped me. A bitter irony, perhaps, or just a final acknowledgement of the depth of my original feelings. I packed them away, sealed them, and decided they would be dropped off at her parents' house or wherever she was staying. I didn't want to see her, not yet. The house felt like a morgue. Too big, too quiet. The dogs were my only comfort, their unwavering affection a balm to my shattered spirit. I spent hours just walking them, or sitting on the floor, petting them, finding solace in their simple, honest presence. My friends, when I finally managed to tell a few of them, were shocked and furious on my behalf. Their support was invaluable, a reminder that I wasn't entirely alone in this desolate landscape. But the emotional roller coaster was relentless. One moment, I'd be filled with a furious resolve, planning out how to handle the divorce with cold precision. The next, I'd be curled up, consumed by a profound sense of loss, replaying every moment, every word, trying to pinpoint where I'd missed the signs, where I'd gone wrong. The self-doubt was crippling. Was I not enough? Was I boring? Did I push her away? Then I'd remember her casual cruelty, her blame, and the anger would surge back, pushing the self-pity aside. It became clear to me that this wasn't just about ending the marriage. It was about reclaiming myself. She had stolen a part of me, my trust, my sense of security, my belief in a shared future. And I needed to get that back. The idea of working on the marriage after her blatant lies and lack of genuine remorse was a non-starter. There was no foundation left. It had been systematically eroded by her deceit. Reconciliation was not an option. My decision was firm: divorce. Not just separation, but a complete severing of ties. I wanted to move on, to heal, to find peace. The revenge I sought wasn't petty retaliation, it was justice. It was ensuring that she faced the consequences, that she couldn't just waltz away from the wreckage she'd created without any repercussions. And it meant protecting myself fiercely in the process. I started making a list of everything: joint accounts, shared assets, her possessions, even the dog's vet records. I was meticulous, cold, and efficient. Every item on that list was a painful reminder, but also a step towards regaining control. This wasn't just my house anymore. It was my sanctuary, and I was going to make sure it was a place of safety and honesty, free from her lies. The future was terrifyingly uncertain, a vast, blank canvas. But for the first time in days, I felt a flicker of agency. I might be broken, but I wasn't powerless. I was going to navigate this, survive this, and eventually thrive. I had to. The initial shock gave way to a chillingly clear focus. I found myself thinking about things I never thought I'd consider. Sarah had always been a bit financially reckless, relying on my more conservative budgeting. Now, her affair had highlighted a dangerous vulnerability: our shared assets. Mark had strongly advised me to secure everything. My first brutal act of self-preservation, which felt a lot like revenge, involved our finances. We had a joint checking account for household expenses, a joint savings account, and several investments. While Mark was drafting the initial papers, I took immediate action. I moved half of the funds from the joint checking and savings into a new, individual account that she had no access to. I also placed a hold on our joint credit cards, effectively freezing them. When Mark called her lawyer, because she'd lawyered up surprisingly fast, probably on his advice, the news hit her like a ton of bricks. She called me, absolutely screaming, accusing me of theft. "You stole my money," she shrieked down the phone, her voice distorted with fury. "How dare you? That's half of our savings." "It's half of our savings, Sarah," I replied, my voice calm, almost detached. "And considering you've been spending it on fancy dinners and who knows what else with your boyfriend, I consider it a preemptive strike to protect my half. Mark advised me to do it. Consider it an advance on the divorce settlement. You want to talk about theft? You stole my trust, my future, and years of my life. A few $1,000s is pocket change compared to that." She was speechless for a moment, then went into a fresh tirade about how unfair I was, how I was trying to ruin her, how I was being vindictive. Vindictive? I chuckled, a dark, humorless sound. "You brought this on yourself, Sarah. I'm just reacting to your choices. You chose to cheat, you chose to lie, and you chose to disrespect our marriage. These are the consequences. And trust me, this is just the beginning." Then came the car. It was technically in my name, but it was her car, the one she drove every day, paid for entirely out of our joint funds. Mark said I had every right to take it back. So, one afternoon, while she was at work, I went to where she'd been staying, her sister's place. I found out through mutual friends. I had the spare key. I drove it home, parked it in the garage, and then called her. "Your car's back here, Sarah," I said, again with that chilling calm. "It's in my name, and I've decided I need it. You can pick up your personal belongings from it. The keys will be with Mark's office. He'll arrange a time for you to collect them. You'll need to find your own transportation now." The silence on her end was even longer this time. Then, a gasp. "You monster. How could you? I need that car for work. You're trying to destroy me." "You should have thought about that before you destroyed our marriage," I countered, feeling a strange sense of satisfaction. It wasn't about the car. It was about the control, about showing her that her actions had real, immediate consequences beyond just my hurt feelings. "As for destroying you, Sarah, you're doing a pretty good job of that on your own. Now, if you'll excuse me, I have actual work to do. Unlike you, I don't get paid for client dinners with my side piece." I hung up before she could respond, savoring the moment. It was a brutal move, I knew, but after months of her brutality to my heart, it felt like a necessary rebalancing of the scales. She had taken so much from me. I was merely taking back what was legally mine and demonstrating that her reckless behavior would no longer be without cost. This wasn't just about moving on. It was about ensuring she understood the wreckage she'd left behind. Okay, hold up a sec. Before I dive into the next chapter of this brutal saga, I just gotta say, if you're finding this story cathartic, or if you're in a similar messed up situation and this is helping you feel less alone, please do me a solid. Like this video and subscribe to my channel. Seriously, it helps me out a lot, and who knows, maybe my misery can at least contribute to some algorithmic success. Anyway, back to the dumpster fire that is my life. Taking back the car was a pivotal moment. It wasn't just a physical asset, it was a symbol. It showed her, unequivocally, that I wasn't going to be the passive victim in this scenario. Her screams over the phone had a profound, if dark, impact on me. They confirmed what I already knew. She wasn't remorseful. She was just furious that her comfortable life was being disrupted. That fueled me. The next few weeks were a relentless dance of legal maneuvers and strategic isolation. Mark was a godsend, guiding me through the legal minefield. Sarah's lawyer, a notoriously aggressive bulldog, immediately tried to paint me as the villain, claiming emotional abuse and financial manipulation. But Mark had the evidence. The picture, the damning text, the timeline of her fabricated work excuses. He made it clear that her attempts to deflect blame would be met with a cold, hard dose of reality. I meticulously went through all our shared digital spaces. I changed passwords to joint accounts, after moving funds, of course, removed her access to shared cloud storage, and even unsubscribed her from joint streaming services. It felt petty, sure, but it was also practical. Why should she benefit from my paid subscriptions when she decided to opt out of our partnership? Each click was a small act of reclamation. One evening, I received a barrage of texts from Sarah, not from her usual number, but from an unknown one. It started with apologies, then pleas, then quickly devolved into threats. She claimed she would expose my dark secrets to my family and employer, fabricate stories, ruin my reputation. She even threatened to take the dogs, knowing how much they meant to me. I didn't respond. Instead, I forwarded every single message to Mark. His advice was immediate: do not engage. This is harassment. We will add it to the file and potentially seek a more formal restraining order. He then sent her lawyer a stern warning about harassment and defamation. The text stopped, but the most unexpected, and perhaps the most brutal, twist came from him. The boyfriend. Apparently, Sarah, in her panicked state, had confided in him that I was ruining her life and taking everything. He, being the white knight type, decided to confront me. I was at the gym, trying to burn off some of the anger and anxiety, when my phone rang from an unknown number. I almost didn't answer, but something told me to. "Is this my name?" a male voice asked, dripping with indignation. "Who's asking?" I replied, instantly wary. "This is Michael, Sarah's friend. I understand you're making her life a living hell. Kicking her out, taking her car, draining her accounts. What kind of man does that?" I paused, a slow, predatory smile spreading across my face. This was better than I could have ever planned. "Michael, is it?" I said, my voice dangerously calm. "So you're Babe, the guy who couldn't wait for round two. Let me tell you, Michael, what kind of man does that? A man whose wife you slept with, a man whose marriage you helped destroy, a man who is now going to make sure that she faces the consequences of her choices. And you, Michael, you're just collateral damage. Did Sarah tell you she was still married when you were playing house? Or did she just conveniently forget to mention that little detail?" The other end of the line went silent. I could practically hear his brain scrambling. She said they were separated, that it was over. "Did she now?" I drawled, leaning against the gym wall. "Funny, because we were still very much married, still living in the same house, still sharing a bed, until I got her accidental text message meant for you. You see, Michael, she lies. A lot. To everyone. Especially to you, apparently. So, while you're busy feeling like her hero, maybe consider who you're actually dealing with. She just got kicked out of her marital home with nothing but a suitcase, Michael. She needs a place to stay and a car to drive. I'm sure you, her babe, will be more than happy to provide those things, won't you?" I hung up, not waiting for his reply. The satisfaction was immense. Not only had I hit Sarah where it hurt, but I'd also sown a seed of doubt and discord in her new relationship. The thought of them arguing, of her having to explain her blatant lies to him, was a delicious form of revenge. This wasn't just about my pain anymore. This was about making sure that the architect of my misery had to live in the crumbling house she'd built on lies. The decision to divorce was solid, but the resolution was evolving. It wasn't just about moving on. It was about ensuring she faced the full, brutal weight of her actions. The confrontation with Michael, her babe, felt like a major turning point. It wasn't just a win for me. It was a profound shift in my perception. No longer just a heartbroken victim. I was now a strategic player in a game I hadn't asked to join. The look on her face when she realized the full implications of me taking back the car, her frantic texts, they confirmed that my actions were having an impact, that the consequences were finally tangible for her. My days became a cycle of focused legal work, regular therapy sessions, which my friends had practically forced me into, and thank God they did, and intense physical activity at the gym. The gym was my sanctuary, a place where I could channel the raw anger and despair into something productive, pushing my limits until exhaustion provided a temporary reprieve from the emotional torment. One of the next crucial steps was the house. It was technically marital property, but my parents had helped with the down payment, and a significant portion of the mortgage was paid from my separate inheritance. Mark advised me to seek full ownership of the house, offering her a fair buyout for her equity, but making it clear that I intended to keep the home. This was non-negotiable for me. This house was our home, yes, but it was also my sanctuary now, and I wasn't giving it up. Sarah, of course, fought tooth and nail. Her lawyer argued for the sale of the house and an equal division of assets. She tried to leverage emotional appeals, saying it was our dream home, completely ignoring the fact that she had personally torched that dream. I provided all the documentation, the down payment source, the mortgage statements from my separate accounts, and a detailed list of all the home improvements I'd paid for since we moved in. Mark presented it all to her lawyer, along with a firm offer for her equity, generously calculated given her recent financial drain on our joint accounts. Her lawyer pushed back, hard. He sent back aggressive counteroffers, demanding higher percentages, claiming I was trying to cheat her out of her rightful share. This was the part that truly sickened me. The legal wrestling over material possessions when the real damage was to my heart and soul. She's completely delusional, I told Mark during one of our calls. She acts like she's entitled to everything, even after what she did. That's how this works, unfortunately, Mark explained patiently. She wants to preserve her lifestyle, and you taking back the car and freezing accounts has likely hit her hard. She's scrambling. That's when an idea, a truly brutal one, sparked in my mind. It was a long shot, but I mentioned it to Mark. Remember when Sarah told me she'd just closed a big deal the night she sent me that picture? Mark checked his notes. Yes, she initially claimed that. Why? Well, I said, a slow, grim smile spreading across my face. I happen to know that her company has a very strict ethics policy regarding employee conduct, especially concerning relationships with clients or other employees, and even more so if it impacts the company's image or involves fraudulent claims about work activities. If her big client pitch was actually a date with her boyfriend, and she logged those hours or claimed expenses against it, that's not just personal infidelity. That's professional misconduct. Mark was silent for a moment. Then I heard him clear his throat. That's an interesting angle. Do you have any proof she was claiming those hours or expenses, beyond the text message itself? Not direct proof, yet, I admitted. But I know how their expense system works. She'd have to submit something. And she lied to me about working on a big client pitch. If she was also lying to her employer, it could be messy for her, Mark finished, a hint of steel in his voice. Very messy. We could, hypothetically, send an anonymous tip to her HR department, or simply hint at it during negotiations, suggesting that a discovery process might uncover some uncomfortable truths about her work practices during the period of her late nights. The thought made me feel a chill, but also a profound sense of justice. She used her job as a shield for her affair. What if that shield could be turned into a weapon against her? This wasn't about financially ruining her for the divorce. It was about exposing her hypocrisy and the depth of her lies. This wasn't just about moving on. It was about ensuring that the architect of my misery had to face consequences that went beyond just losing me. This was about making sure her web of deceit finally tangled her up. The idea of hitting Sarah where it truly hurt, her professional life, simmered for a few days. It felt extreme, even for me, but her unwavering sense of entitlement and her lawyer's aggressive tactics were pushing me further down this path. Mark, ever the pragmatist, advised caution. This kind of move can backfire, but if handled correctly, it can be a powerful lever in negotiations, he'd said. We don't want to seem vindictive, but we want to make it clear that we're aware of all her activities. I spent hours poring over old bank statements, looking for any unusual charges around the times of her alleged late meetings. I found several restaurant charges on her personal card, in areas far from her office, that didn't align with her usual business dining patterns. Not concrete proof, but enough to raise questions. And the fact that she'd lied about the big client pitch that very night was damning circumstantial evidence. The decisive moment came during a mediation session. It was the first time I'd seen Sarah since I kicked her out, and the sight of her sent a fresh jolt of anger through me. She looked good. Dressed impeccably, hair perfectly styled, trying to project an image of calm composure. But I could see the tension around her eyes, the way her jaw was clenched. She wouldn't even look at me. Her lawyer started, once again, pushing for a higher settlement, claiming emotional distress and financial hardship on Sarah's part due to my unilateral actions. He painted a picture of a distraught wife, victimized by a vengeful husband. My blood was boiling, but I stayed silent, letting Mark do his job. Mark, in his measured tone, laid out our counterproposal, reiterating my intent to keep the house and offering a fair, but firm, buyout for her share. He then subtly dropped the bomb. Given the unfortunate circumstances that led to this divorce, Mark began, looking directly at Sarah's lawyer. My client has reason to believe that some of Mrs. my last name's work-related activities during the marriage may not have been entirely above board, especially concerning alleged client meetings that appear to have been personal in nature. We have some preliminary evidence to suggest that hours were logged or expenses claimed for non-work events. While we are currently focused on the marital settlement, should this escalate to a discovery phase, my client would be compelled to subpoena Mrs. my last name's employment records and expense reports to clarify these discrepancies. I'm sure we all want to avoid involving employers in what is essentially a private matter, but my client is prepared to ensure full transparency regarding Mrs. my last name's activities. The room went silent. Sarah, who had been idly picking at her cuticles, snapped her head up. Her eyes met mine across the table, and the composure vanished. Her face paled, and a look of pure, unadulterated fear flashed in her eyes. It was a look I'd never seen on her before, not even when I'd shown her the photo. This was different. This was about her career, her livelihood, her public image beyond our shattered marriage. Her lawyer, despite his aggressive front, also seemed taken aback. He glanced at Sarah, then back at Mark. "Counsel, I believe that's an unnecessary escalation. My client's professional life is irrelevant to this divorce." "Is it?" Mark asked, a slight, knowing smile on his face. If her professional life involved fraudulent activities that potentially drew from marital funds, or if her conduct impacts her ability to contribute to a fair settlement, then it's absolutely relevant. We simply want to ensure transparency. Unless, of course, there's something to hide? Sarah finally spoke, her voice thin and shaky. No, there's nothing to hide. This is ridiculous. He's just trying to blackmail me." "Blackmail?" I finally interjected, my voice cold. "No, Sarah. I'm just making sure you face the full consequences of your lies in every aspect of your life. You chose to use your job as a cover for your affair. Now, you get to deal with the potential fallout." Her lawyer quickly called for a recess, practically dragging Sarah out of the room. The silence that followed was heavy, but for me, it was a profound victory. I had found her Achilles heel. The fear in her eyes, the way she visibly crumbled, it was a powerful affirmation that this brutal revenge was striking exactly where it needed to. This wasn't just about financial settlements. It was about the brutal, emotional impact of exposing her carefully constructed world of deceit. And in that moment, I felt a grim satisfaction. She was finally starting to understand the magnitude of her betrayal. During the recess, I could hear muffled, angry voices from the hallway where Sarah and her lawyer had retreated. Sarah's voice was high-pitched and frantic, while her lawyer's was low and urgent. It was clear that my hint had struck a nerve. When they returned, Sarah's face was still pale, but she had a renewed, albeit forced, composure. Her lawyer, however, looked distinctly less aggressive. He cleared his throat. "My client is prepared to reevaluate her position regarding the marital home. She understands your client's desire to retain the property." He then launched into a revised proposal, which, while still a negotiation, was significantly closer to my initial offer for her equity. The mention of her job had clearly shifted the power dynamics. The threat of exposing her professional misconduct was a sword of Damocles hanging over her head. The next few weeks were a relentless grind of negotiations. We settled on the house. I would retain ownership, and she would receive a predetermined sum for her equity, paid out over 6 months. This gave her something, but not enough to maintain her previous lifestyle without a significant cut. I also got to keep the dogs, which was a huge relief and a non-negotiable for me. She tried to argue for shared custody, but Mark successfully countered that given her instability and her current living situation, still at her sister's, apparently, it was not in the dog's best interest. She didn't press the issue too hard, probably realizing it would only invite further scrutiny into her life. The divorce itself proceeded with relative speed, at least in legal terms. The final papers were signed, and just like that, after 7 years of marriage, it was over. The day the divorce was finalized, I felt a strange mix of emotions. There was relief, certainly, a profound sense of closure, but also a lingering sadness, a ghost of what could have been. It was the end of an era, a clean break from a person I once loved deeply, but who had proven to be a stranger. After the legal dust settled, the real work of emotional healing began. I continued with therapy, which became an invaluable tool in processing the trauma of betrayal. My therapist helped me understand that her actions weren't a reflection of my worth, but a reflection of her own character flaws and insecurities. It wasn't my fault. This realization was liberating. I also started reconnecting with friends I'd inadvertently pulled away from during the more intense phases of my marriage and her affair. They were a solid support system, patiently listening, offering distractions, and reminding me of my own value. I picked up old hobbies, started new ones, and slowly, painstakingly, began to rebuild a life that was truly mine. The revenge, in its most brutal form, had been served. Sarah's comfortable life was shattered. Her new relationship with Michael was, as I'd hoped, rocky and strained by her lies, and her professional reputation was perpetually under a dark cloud. I didn't actively do anything further to her job, but the threat had been enough. She lived with the constant anxiety that her deceit could be exposed at any moment. And honestly, that was enough for me. My goal wasn't to destroy her utterly, but to ensure she faced real consequences, to feel a fraction of the chaos and insecurity she had inflicted upon me. The acceptance part was the hardest. Accepting that the person I loved was a lie, accepting that my future had to be entirely redrawn. But with acceptance came a strange sense of peace. I was no longer chained to her deceit, no longer living under a shadow of betrayal. I was free. Free to mourn, free to heal, free to rebuild. And as I looked out at the sunrise each morning, with my dogs by my side, I started to believe that a genuinely happy and honest future was not just possible, but within my reach. I had survived. I was scarred, but not broken. And that, I realized, was the ultimate victory. The immediate aftermath of the divorce left me feeling like a veteran of a long, brutal war. The battles were over, but the scars were deep, and the landscape of my life was unrecognizable. The house, once a shared space, slowly began to feel like my home again. I rearranged furniture, removed everything that reminded me specifically of Sarah, and started to infuse it with my own identity. I painted the living room a new color, a deep blue that felt calming and fresh, something Sarah would have never chosen. Each small change was a therapeutic act of reclaiming my space. The emotional impact continued to be a roller coaster. There were days when I felt strong, resilient, and utterly at peace with my decision. I'd wake up without the dread that had accompanied me for months, truly enjoying the quiet morning routine with the dogs. Then there were other days, usually triggered by something mundane, a song on the radio, a scent, a memory unexpectedly surfacing, when a wave of sadness or anger would crash over me, leaving me feeling hollowed out and exhausted. It was a process, my therapist assured me, and not a linear one. I continued therapy, focusing on rebuilding my self-worth and trust. The betrayal had made me question everything, even my own judgment. My therapist helped me understand that while I might have missed the signs, my fundamental trust in someone I loved deeply was not a flaw, but a strength that had been exploited. It was a slow, painful journey, but with each session, I felt a little bit lighter, a little bit more grounded. My friends were incredible during this time. They didn't let me wallow alone. There were countless dinners, movie nights, hikes with the dogs, and even a guy's trip to blow off steam. They listened patiently, offered comfort, and reminded me of who I was before Sarah and who I could be again. They celebrated my small victories and sat with me through the moments of despair. I also threw myself into work, finding a new focus and drive. It wasn't just a distraction. It was a way to rebuild my financial security and create a stable foundation for my new, independent life. I took on new projects, excelled, and started to feel a sense of accomplishment that had been missing for a long time. As for Sarah, I largely cut her out of my life, as Mark had advised. I changed my phone number, blocked her on all social media, and made sure there were no mutual friends who would inadvertently update me on her life. The less I knew, the better. Ignorance, in this case, was truly bliss. I heard through the grapevine, a friend of a friend who wasn't directly connected to either of us, that her relationship with Michael was, predictably, not going well. Turns out, a woman who cheats on her husband with you might also be prone to other forms of instability and deceit. Who would have thought? The karmic justice was quiet, but satisfying. My decision to divorce, though brutal in its execution, had been the right one. I had faced the truth, endured the pain, and taken decisive action to protect myself. The resolution wasn't about revenge forever, but about creating a clear path for myself to heal and move forward. I learned that sometimes, the kindest thing you can do for yourself is to be brutally honest about what you deserve, and then fight like hell to get it. The past was a painful lesson, but the future, for the first time in a long time, felt open and full of possibility. Alright, before I get into the deep stuff, just a quick reminder. If you're finding any value in this story, or if you just want to support someone picking up the pieces, do me a huge favor and like this video and subscribe to my channel. It really means a lot, helps keep things going, and lets me know these raw shares are reaching people. Thanks, guys. Okay, so life after the divorce was a gradual climb out of a very deep, dark hole. The emotional impact, as I said, wasn't a straight line. There were still unexpected triggers. One day, I saw a car identical to Sarah's old one, and my heart jumped into my throat. Another time, a song came on the radio that had been our song, and I had to pull over just to breathe through the sudden wave of sorrow and anger. These moments were less frequent, though, and I learned to ride them out, acknowledging the pain without letting it consume me. The healing really began when I started to actively re-engage with the world, not just as a distraction, but as a deliberate choice to live again. I signed up for a cooking class I'd always wanted to take. It was small, intimate, and forced me to interact with new people, to laugh, to focus on something entirely unconnected to the wreckage of my past. It was surprisingly liberating. I even got pretty good at making pasta from scratch. I also took a solo trip. It was something Sarah and I had always talked about doing, but she always had an excuse or a work conflict. I booked a ticket to Iceland, rented a car, and just drove. Being alone in the vast, beautiful, and sometimes stark landscapes was incredibly therapeutic. It gave me space to think, to process, and to truly appreciate my own company. I realized that I could be happy, truly happy, on my own, that I didn't need someone else to complete me. Sarah's betrayal had forced me into this journey of self-discovery, and while it was born from pain, it was leading me to a stronger, more self-sufficient version of myself. The acceptance became more profound. It wasn't just about accepting the end of the marriage, but accepting her for who she was, a flawed, dishonest person who made choices that destroyed our relationship. I stopped trying to understand why she did it, stopped trying to find fault in myself. Her reasons were hers, and they ultimately didn't matter. What mattered was how I chose to respond and move forward. The resolution part wasn't a neat, clean ending, like in the movies. It was a continuous process. There was no grand confrontation where she finally broke down and apologized sincerely. There was just the slow, steady process of rebuilding my life, piece by painful piece. I focused on building a strong foundation for myself, my career, my friendships, my physical and mental health. I even started tentatively dating again, after many months. It was nerve-wracking, putting myself out there again, especially with the baggage of such a brutal betrayal. But I met some kind, interesting people. I was upfront about my past, about the divorce, about the trust issues I was working through. Some people understood, others didn't. And that was okay. I learned to recognize red flags, to listen to my gut, and to value honesty and transparency above all else. The lasting impact of the betrayal was a heightened sense of awareness. I was more discerning, more cautious, but also more appreciative of genuine connection. I learned that true strength wasn't about avoiding pain, but about enduring it, learning from it, and emerging stronger on the other side. My ultimate revenge wasn't her suffering, though that did bring some grim satisfaction. My ultimate revenge was thriving. It was building a life so full and authentic that her absence wasn't a void, but an opening for something better. And that, I realized, was the most brutal, beautiful comeback of all. As the months turned into a year, the acute pain of the betrayal began to recede, replaced by a dull ache that surfaced only occasionally. The lessons learned, however, were etched deeply. The most significant one was the importance of self-preservation, not just in the immediate aftermath of a crisis, but as an ongoing principle for life. I learned that ignoring red flags, no matter how small, out of love or a desire for peace, was a perilous path. My initial dismissals of Sarah's changing behavior had cost me dearly. My relationship with Mark, my lawyer, evolved from a professional one into something akin to a friendship. He was impressed with how I handled myself throughout the brutal process, and he even referred me to some of his other clients who were going through similarly messy divorces, advising them on how to maintain their composure and focus on the long game. It was a strange kind of validation, knowing that my experience, however painful, could help others navigate their own storms. I poured my energy into renovating the house. What started as just removing Sarah's presence became a passion project. I learned basic carpentry, tackled plumbing issues, and transformed the garden. Each new skill I acquired, each completed project, was a tangible representation of my rebuilding process. The house truly became mine, reflecting my tastes, my efforts, and my resilience. It was no longer a monument to a failed marriage, but a testament to my ability to create something new and beautiful out of destruction. My social life also flourished. I deepened existing friendships and made new ones through my hobbies and classes. I found myself drawn to people who were genuine, honest, and had a strong sense of integrity, qualities I now prioritized above all else. The superficiality that had always been a subtle undercurrent in Sarah's personality, which I had once mistaken for ambition, now repelled me. I sought out real connection, authentic conversations, and relationships built on mutual respect. One particularly poignant moment came when I received an unexpected package. It was from Sarah's sister, who I'd always had a decent relationship with, but who had understandably gone quiet after everything blew up. Inside was a small, worn photo album from our early dating years. A note tucked inside read, "I found this going through some old boxes. Thought you might want it. I'm so sorry, my name." It wasn't a peace offering from Sarah, but an acknowledgement of the shared history and the devastation from someone who still cared, even from a distance. I looked through it, saw the young, hopeful faces, and for the first time, felt a pang of nostalgia without the immediate bitterness. It was a sign that true healing was beginning, that I could remember the good without being overwhelmed by the bad. The idea of revenge had slowly transformed. It was no longer about causing Sarah pain, but about living my best life, independently and authentically. Her punishment was simply the natural consequence of her choices: the loss of a stable home, the unraveling of her new relationship, and the constant anxiety of a career built on a foundation of lies. My ultimate revenge was my own happiness, my renewed sense of self, and the incredible, fulfilling life I was building, free from her toxicity. The emotional impact was now predominantly one of gratitude. Gratitude for escaping the lie, gratitude for the lessons learned, and gratitude for the opportunity to start fresh.